So you've just been handed a check. Awesome. You flip it over, scribble your name on the back, and you're good to go, right? Well, that simple signature you just made, it's way more powerful than you think. It's a serious legal instruction, and today we're going to unpack exactly what it is, what it does, and why it's so important. Here's the game plan for our little journey. First, we'll nail down what an endorsement actually is. Then we'll look at the 3 things that make it legit. After that, we'll dive into the different kinds of endorsements. Think of it as a roadmap. We'll cover some special rules of the road, and then wrap it all up with why this stuff still matters. All right, first things first. What exactly is an endorsement? It's so easy to think of it as just, your signature. But in the world of finance, that single act carries some serious legal weight. Okay, so here's the core idea. An endorsement is your signature on something like a check that officially hands it over to someone else. You can think of it like signing over the title to your car. The second you put your pen to that paper, you're not just signing your name, you're legally transferring ownership. Your signature gives the next person in line the full legal right to that document and all the money it represents. And listen, this isn't just some casual handshake agreement. This is all laid out legally. What we're looking at here are the original handwritten notes from our source material, and it spells it all out. That sign you make is legally called an endorsement, and you become the endorser. It's your signature that acts like a key, unlocking that check so it can be passed along to someone else.
So, before we get into all the different types of endorsements, all the different paths that check can take, we gotta know the basic rules of the game. There are 3 absolute must-haves, 3 essential ingredients that make an endorsement legally binding.
It's actually a pretty simple checklist. First, the signature has to come from the person whose name is on the front of the check, the payee. Makes sense, right? Second, that signature needs to make it obvious that you intend to pass the check on. And third, and this is a big one, location matters. You have to sign it on the back. And if there's absolutely no room back there, you can sign a separate piece of paper and attach it, which, by the way, has a very cool name and a launch. And now we get to the really interesting part. Think of the different kinds of endorsements as giving different turn-by-turn directions on a map. When you endorse a check, you get to be the navigator. You decide exactly where the money goes, how it gets there, and what rules apply along the way. Our source material lays out 6 main types, and each one has a very specific job. We're going to walk through all of them, starting with the ones you see every day and then getting into the more specialized ones. So on one side, you've got the blank endorsement. This is probably the one you're most familiar with. It's just your signature. That's it. Simple, yes, but also kind of risky, because it basically turns that check into cash. Whoever's holding it can cash it. But on the other side, you have a full endorsement, which is way, way safer. That's where you write, pay to the order of Jane Doe, and then you sign. Now only Jane Doe can do anything with that check. Now things get a little more creative with a conditional endorsement. This one makes the payment totally dependent on something else happening in the future. I love the example from our source notes here. Pay Mr. X if he returns from USA. Mr. X is only getting that money if and when he comes back. It's basically putting a financial if-then clause right on the back of the check. Then there's the restrictive endorsement. This one is like putting up a big stop sign. It completely halts the check's ability to be passed on any further. You've probably done this yourself by writing for deposit only. Or look at this example from the source, pay contents to C only. That means C can get the money, but that's it. C can't turn around and endorse it to someone else. The journey ends right there. Okay, these last 2 are a little more specialized, but they're really interesting. Sans recourse literally means without recourse. When you sign a check this way, you're essentially saying, hey, I'm passing this along to you, but if the check bounces, don't come crying to me. You're transferring the money, but you're washing your hands of any liability. A facultative endorsement is where you, the endorser, willingly give up one of your legal rights, like the right to get an official notice if the check doesn't clear. Okay, we've covered the main types, but what about those weird, real-world situations? Let's dive into some practical rules of the road for when things aren't so straightforward. One of the most common issues is when the name on the check isn't quite right. Maybe it's misspelled, or it's an old name. This chart from our source shows you exactly what to do. The key is to sign it first, exactly as it's written on the check, and then sign it again with your correct legal signature. If your name is changed, you sign with your new name, and then add a note about your former name. The whole point is to create a crystal clear legal trail from the name on the front of the check to you. And here are a few other key rules to keep in your back pocket. A minor, for instance, can legally sign a check, but you can't hold them responsible if it bounces. If a check is made out to 2 people jointly, guess what? Both of them have to sign it. Also, you can't endorse a check for just part of the money. It's an all-or-nothing deal. And finally, you can't try to split the funds by endorsing it to two different people. It has to follow one single path.
So after all these different types and all these little rules, let's just zoom out for a second. Why does this single signature on a piece of paper matter so much in the grand scheme of things?
So if you remember anything, remember this. An endorsement is not just a scribble. It is a powerful legal command. It is the engine that actually directs the flow of money and transfers ownership from one person to the next. And by choosing the type of endorsement, you get to set the specific terms, the conditions, and even who's responsible if something goes wrong. That little signature puts you firmly in the driver's seat.
And that brings us to one last big question. You know, we live in a world of tapping our phones and watches for instant payments. So do all these old school rules for signing a piece of paper really matter anymore? Well, the legal ideas we've just talked about, things like transfer, liability, and intent, they were born on paper, but they form the absolute bedrock of our modern financial systems. So it makes you wonder, how do these centuries-old rules continue to shape the invisible, instantaneous flow of our digital money today?